I feel like if a book finally makes me decide to see my therapist again, that's enough for 5 stars. Talking about all the books I read in the month of September. These are going to be 3 mystery novels. 2 of them are murder mysteries too. And 1 self-help book that I think might be the best self-help book I've read. Since I'm going to be talking a lot about books, of course I have to also talk about Book of the Month, which is the sponsor of today's video. They are a super popular and fast-growing online book service for readers, and they are finally coming to Canada. Before it used to be US only, now they are expanding a little bit more. I'm super excited that Canadian readers can finally have access to it. Their mission is to promote new and emerging authors for readers to discover. So every month their team vets hundreds of books and curates the best 5 to 7 selections for you to choose from. It's totally risk-free, so you can skip any month, anytime, and you will not be charged. I personally picked 2 books for this month. They are Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong, because I am always down for young adult fantasy, and Sign Here, which looks like an interesting debut novel that has some dark humor. It's about a guy who works in hell, and it's also a pretty fitting book for October. If you want to check out the other books that they've selected, you can go ahead and check out their website, and don't forget to click on the link in my description if you want to sign up for your first box for $9.99 using my code ReadWithCindy. Now let's get into the books that I read. The first mystery that I read is The Woman in the Library. This is a very meta mystery book because it's about a murder mystery writer who's writing about a murder mystery while she's experiencing her own murder mystery. It starts off with her working on her novel in the library. She's sitting at a table with 3 other strangers, and since she's a writer, she observes some of their qualities and kind of uses their traits to inspire her own novel, which is why it gets even more meta, because you're kind of following this novel along, but then it's like, are you reading the novel or are you experiencing the real life thing that's happening alongside with her? Because what happens is, even though they start off as strangers at this table, they hear this scream coming from one of the other rooms in the library. And it's because of that woman's scream that these 4 strangers decide to start a conversation and get to know each other. Each of them has their own reason for being in the reading room that morning, but one of them is actually the murderer. I was really surprised to be engaged in this book, even though I didn't really care for the mystery aspect of it. But I think I really liked the writing style and format. The writing reminded me of a cozy mystery, like an old school mystery book that you read when you were little. And I think what makes the writing format interesting is that while you are reading about this author who's writing a mystery while she's experiencing her own mystery, you're also reading this email correspondence that she has with an aspiring writer and a fan of her who offers to beta read her manuscript. So in between the chapters, when you read about what's happening to her, then you read the emails about him replying to what she's writing in the novel, which is inspired by the events that are happening in real life. And he's giving all this advice to her. He's pretty much the most accurate description of a white male writer that I've ever seen. The way that he writes and the way that he talks and the self-disparaging way that he tries to humbly talk about his novel and the way that he tries to suck up to the main character is very similar to the type of emails that I get from people. As you go on throughout the novel, the way that he speaks gets increasingly more unhinged, and then he becomes an added storyline that you see happen alongside the main story, which I thought was really interesting. That's when I became more invested. So this kind of was like a double-edged sword, because even though I didn't necessarily care for the main mystery that was going on, I really liked what was happening with the emails and the subplot. Also, what gets meta about it is that the main character decides to add a character to her story that has the same name as the guy that she's emailing and is based off of him. I'm gonna go with 4 stars because generally I did enjoy reading this book, even though I didn't care for the mystery. It's weird because that's supposed to be the point of a mystery book, but I think there were other things going along that made it engaging for me. Because I personally enjoyed the email subplot better, I wish that it was tied into the main plot. I actually expected it to be, and that we would actually see the 2 storylines converge, or maybe whatever story she was writing was actually going to be used as a way to solve something that was going on in real life that she was experiencing. I'm trying to describe things very vaguely so that I don't explain everything that happens in this mystery, but if you read the book, then you should know what I'm talking talking about. I think it would have been super interesting for you to get some version of the story that you can glean over by reading the guy's emails, but then in actuality what's happening in real life is different, and then you can kind of piece the differences together. I think that would have been way more interesting, but she didn't go that route. But I think because I had fun with the potential of it, I still enjoyed the book anyway. Especially with some of the romantic developments that happens in the book, I kind of felt like it was rushed, and I think if she had gone that route where there was like a fake story in contrast with a real story, that would have helped explain certain romantic developments that happened a lot better. I also didn't really care for the ending and the reveal that happened, so it definitely wasn't a perfect book to me, but I still enjoyed the ride. That brought me into the mood of reading more mystery books. So the next book that I read was The Guest List. This is a very classic murder mystery story that takes place on an island off the coast of Ireland where a wedding is occurring. This time you get a bigger cast of characters along with multiple perspectives, and I thought what was most fun about it was that each character pretty much has a good motivation for wanting to murder the person that gets murdered in the first place. You don't really find out who it is till later on. So there's a lot of setup for this cast of characters, and as a result, the book is pretty slow for the first 2/3 of it. A lot of the conflicts are basically like more of a family drama rather than a thriller. But I'm into the drama, so when there's tea, I will be sipping it. So it's really the last 1/3 of the book that picked it up for me, because then you finally get to see all the setup pay off. Now you know all the characters' stories and the motivations for possibly murdering the person that died. Then all the pieces come tumbling together. By that point, I was very quickly going through the pages to try to find out what was gonna happen. That's when the drama got juicy. So I did like the payoff. I did like some of the twists that happened because of the drama of it all. I also like the atmosphere of this remote island in Ireland because it just added to the spooky vibes. It kind of made it seem almost paranormal even though it actually wasn't. So because I enjoyed the book, I decided to rate it 4 stars. I know, I'm very easygoing this month. Who would have thought? Sometimes I really do just want to have a fun time. I would say my main gripe of this book is the inconsistent writing. Most of the writing is decent. Some of it can actually be pretty good. And then you have moments like these. I remember that because I remember wondering what he could possibly do. You remember that because you remember? Where was the editor in this? And what's weird is that when I read the acknowledgements of this book, this author had 3 editors for this book. Did the 3 of you decide to take shifts editing this book, but then the 3 of you fell asleep at the same time? What's going on? This was such an easy fix. I remember that because I was wondering blah 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 blah. And then there's another part where some character is describing a party that's going on. They've abandoned the tables for the dance floor. It's absolutely crammed in there. There are all these 30-something slut dropping and grinding on each other as though they're in some shit strip club dancing to 50 Cent. First of all, what is slut dropping? Second of all, the only artist that you can think of in a strip club is 50 Cent. This is how you know that an older white lady who doesn't actually go clubbing is writing this book. Because then she's just imagining, yeah, the kids would be slut dropping to 50 Cent. That's the most relevant artist I can think of right now. Whatever slut dropping is, I want in. The music choices are questionable, but I feel like it could be a fun time theoretically. So it's not a perfect book by any means because some of the writing was questionable, but hey, I'm just focused on having a good time, and in the last 1/3 of the book, it really picked up. If this were made into a movie, I definitely could see myself enjoying it if I had been watching it for the first time and didn't know what was gonna happen. And the last mystery book that I read was The Last Gambit. This is actually the 3rd book to the Inheritance Games trilogy. It's a young adult book, and you can tell by the synopsis because the whole trilogy is based on the premise where a poor girl finds out that she has received an inheritance from a billionaire who has passed away, even though she has never met the billionaire. But in order to receive her inheritance, she has to move into the estate where she must live with 4 other grandsons, who of course are all young and handsome. When I read the first book, I ate that shit up, because if you are a fan of reverse harems, then this is pretty much the book for you. I buddy read this with my friend. We had such a great time. There was a love triangle, and I know that some people feel a certain way when it comes to love triangles, but we ate that shit up in the first book. We thought it was pretty juicy, and the mystery aspect was fun because the billionaire was the kind of guy who really loved to set up these riddles and games for people to solve. So the main character had a good head on her shoulders shoulders and was great at being intuitive and trying to solve these riddles. We got to meet the other brothers who I felt like were all endearing in their own ways. So because my friend and I had a great time, we rated the book 5 stars. And then we read the sequel, and it all came downhill from there. The second book really suffered from second book syndrome, where it kind of felt like the author was stretching the story out for the sake of turning it into a series. A lot of the characters that we found endearing in the first book either faded to the background or became super annoying. And the romantic developments, we were not a fan of. We felt like the first book set up such a great foundation for a certain romance, and the second book seemed to just throw that all away and force things that didn't feel natural or didn't make sense. My friend, who was much more invested than I was, she was so heartbroken and disappointed. And so with the third book, I didn't know if I was gonna read it, but when it came out, my friend texted me saying like, hey, I think I'm gonna go ahead and read the third book and just see how it ends. And I was like, you know what, I'll go ahead and read the book with you. We were either gonna be disappointed together, in which case we could commiserate together, or we could be pleasantly surprised. Either way, it would be something that I could share with my friends. My final thoughts about this book: meh. I just don't care anymore. Book 1 truly was the best, and then the rest kind of fizzled out from there. I think this is proof that not everything needs to be a series. And I don't know what the author was thinking. I can't predict what her mind was going through, but I feel like the author had an original vision in the first book, and maybe I'm delusional about this, but I really think that she was swayed to go a different route as she decided to expand the story into 3 books. And that's why I don't think that this book should have been a series, because if she had stuck to her original vision, then it could have ended so cleanly. I do think that the ending was a little satisfying. I did like what happened in the end, at least when it came to seeing how the brothers turned out. I liked that the main character pointed out that the billionaire wasn't a good person, because that definitely aligns with my beliefs that there are no morally good billionaires that exist in this world. You can't be a billionaire unless you're a bad person. So I like that there was a little bit of gray morality with how we were supposed to view this billionaire, and also what the main character decided to do with the money as well. I think what she ended up doing is the same thing that I would have done in her position. Not saying that is the right thing to do, I'm just saying I would have done the same shit. I do think that the plot was a little bit more engaging and interesting. I also think the romance was less annoying, and there were even some juicy scenes too. With the guy that I was rooting for, they said some certain lines. I think one of them was along the lines of saying he'll never say what he truly wants. And I remember literally saying out loud, God damn it. So I feel like in 2 chapters, I was like, ooh, this is some juicy shit. But in the other ones, I was just like, meh. So I would go with 3 stars because it was a little bit better than the sequel. And I did like that there were some things that were wrapped up in a somewhat satisfying way. But I've pretty much lost all interest at this point. Again, my motivations to read this book were not because I actually felt like I would enjoy it, but just because I wanted to be there for my friend while she was depressed. And yes, she was very depressed from the ending. Let me see if I can pull up her text. I feel like my take is so lukewarm because I just don't care anymore. She had a more emotional reaction. She said, I finished it. I'm so sad. LOL. I hate myself because the plot for me was actually interesting and engaging. But I'm petty, so I'm sad. I am never going to shake book 1 from my system. How much fun and imperfectly perfect it was. Like, how did we get here? I mean, it was overall a good ending and I did enjoy the book, but like, ... Why does this keep happening to me? I'm also sad that I'm never going to be chosen by a billionaire to inherit his money and live with 3 hot brothers and have 30 conversations and live carefree and lavishly for the rest of my life. To which I laughed because there are supposed to be 4 brothers, but she hates one of them so much that she won't even acknowledge him. I replied back saying, dude, did you read the final Gambit in a day? I guess you wanted the pain over with, huh? And then she said, yeah, man, and I'm still feeling it. I keep walking around my room trying to shake it off. So clearly, my friend is grieving. I hope that even though I have a very lukewarm reaction, that you have found some amusement in her suffering. At least now we can be free from mediocre rich white boys with Texan accents. If you read the audiobook, you know what I'm talking about. The narrator will not make you forget that they are from Texas. Maybe that's why it was easier for me to let go of them. And finally, to break the pattern of reading mystery books, I listened to a very short audiobook called How to Keep House While Drowning. This is super short and sweet. It was written by a therapist. The premise for how this all started was that this author gave birth birth to her second child. And when it came to taking care of the house and her children, she thought she had it in the bag because she had drafted this very comprehensive plan and schedule and had these caretakers and nannies lined up because she had the privilege and money to be able to hire outside help. And all those plans came crashing down when the pandemic happened. So obviously she could not hire caretakers to come into her home and take care of her children. She had to do all of that herself. It was very overwhelming for her to juggle all of her adult responsibilities with taking care of her house and also taking care of her children, who were also messing up the house because children are little menaces like that. It's really hard when you're dealing with a lot of mental health struggles with the global pandemic and disasters and political bullshit that's happening. As a result, it's very easy to let your space be messy and then also feel shit because your space is messy. I picked this book up because even though I will never be a mother and never take care of children, I often fall into a messy space because my time management is so chaotic where I feel like I have to prioritize certain tasks in my life, like writing my novel or getting my job done or just doing X, Y, and Z, that I don't have time to clean my space or to cook or to wash the dishes and put them away. And then I get overwhelmed and I beat myself up because I see this messy space and I see it as a sign of my failure that I don't have control of my life. This book ended up coming for my neck. It's such a short audiobook. I think it's only 3 hours, but already I felt like this author psychologically analyzed me with such accuracy that it made me self-reflect and realize the way that I was viewing myself and my habits and punishing myself so severely. And this went beyond just doing chores around the house. This was how I approached everything in life where I was beating myself up. One of her philosophies is that you don't exist to serve your space. Your space exists to serve you. So rather than trying to view your life as like an endless cycle of chores where you have to constantly clean up this shit and wipe this shit and do all this other stuff and then do it all over again the next day, it's reframing it as a way for you to organize your space in a way that's functional for the things that you want to do that make you feel better. And rather than calling these things as chores, she labels them as care tasks because then it takes away the negativity of chores as something you're forcing yourself to do and positions it as a care task where you're doing this in order to better yourself and better your space. Also, she really encourages shifting your perspective of care tasks of something that's not moral, but something that's functional. Because a lot of times when we view care tasks, we view it under this morality lens where if you have a messy space, then that means you're a bad person, you're lazy, you don't have your shit together. She says, when you view care tasks as moral, the motivation for completing them is often shame. When everything is in its place, you don't feel like a failure. If you are completing the care task with a motivation of shame, you are also probably relaxing in shame too, because care tasks never end, and you view rest as a reward. And I gasped when she said this shit because that came from my fucking neck. I am this way with everything. When it comes to being productive, when it comes to writing and working on my novel, if I don't do these things, I put so much shame on myself. And I feel like I can't truly relax unless I do all these things first. That way I feel like I earned my relaxation. That really brought me away from being present in moments of relaxation, whether it's with my partner or whether it's with friends. I feel guilty because I have this nagging me in the back of my mind. And what I really enjoy from this book is how she emphasizes being compassionate with yourself. It made me realize how quick I am to label myself as lazy and go into self-loathing mode. I am actually very burnt out and I'm very overwhelmed by these things. This is something that my partner has told me for so long, where she's told me, you're not lazy, you have a lot of things on your plate. But I tell myself, no, that's not true. This is actually super easy shit that I'm going through. It's just that I'm incapable of handling it. Really, that's not the case. Life is actually really hard and I really am juggling a lot of stuff and I'm burning myself out from it. So this book truly made me self-reflect on the way that I view productivity and how that affects my judgment of myself. The book also emphasizes things like how to give yourself permission to rest even when things are not finished, and how to motivate yourself to care for your space. There are some things that she suggests for you to do to take care of your space in a way that works for you. I don't know if I personally will follow her advice which is fine because she also talks about how a lot of times self-help books are not that great because the author is only giving advice that works for them, but people work very different. So there's no one-size-fits-all solution. That's why I don't feel pressure to follow her advice if it's very prescriptive. Instead, I feel like I just resonate more with her philosophies, especially when she talks about how rest is a right, not a reward. You deserve to rest. You don't have to do a bunch of things in order to earn rest. It's something that you should always have. Also, she emphasizes how you deserve kindness regardless of whether you're functioning well or not functioning that well. It doesn't matter if your space is messy as hell or you don't have your shit together, you still deserve kindness and to be gentle with yourself. This is something that I constantly see when I follow positivity accounts, but it doesn't really register to me as well as it has with this specific book. And I think it's because she emphasizes how the alternative is shame, and shame never works. It just makes you spiral even more and it makes you burn out even more. And she also talks about how good enough is perfect. It's okay if you half-ass things because that's better than not doing it at all. Just do whatever amount you're capable of doing at the time, and that's good enough. Well, I just really appreciated how this book is so kind and thoughtful and compassionate. It is like a gentle embrace. I think it's very considerate of all the ways that people can feel overwhelmed, whether it's financial situations or disabilities or depression or any other factor. And I found it to be very warm and healing. Even though I don't know if I'll follow the specific prescriptive advice she has for doing the chores, I feel like if a book finally makes me decide to see my therapist again, that's enough for 5 stars. Something that I personally find helpful to get my care tasks done is just playing a YouTube video in the background. That makes it a lot more bearable when I can just focus on something else, like a TV show or a YouTube video or whatever. And I know that some of you put my videos on in the background while you do that stuff too. So I'm happy to help for that instance. So please go ahead and take care of yourself. Go ahead and unsubscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Irrational.